Grimsby versus Man United. Final decision made, no replay despite rule breach. Welcome back to United News, your most trusted source for all things Manchester United. When the football world becomes confusing and rumors start flying everywhere, this is exactly where you need to be. We have built our reputation by bringing you the truth, the full story, and the analysis that matters most to every Red Devil supporter. Today we are covering one of the most controversial stories from this season that had Manchester United fans holding their breath, hoping for a second chance that would never come. The night that shocked Old Trafford. Picture this scenario. You are Manchester United, one of the biggest clubs in world football. You are playing against Grimsby Town, a League Two team that most casual football fans have never heard of. This should be a routine victory, a comfortable passage to the next round of the Carabao Cup. Instead, you find yourself in a penalty shootout after a dramatic 2-2 draw. Then the unthinkable happens. Grimsby Town, a team playing 3 divisions below you, beats Manchester United 12-11 on penalties. The upset of the season, maybe even the decade. But wait, there is more to this story. What if we told you that Grimsby actually broke the rules during this match? What if there was a chance that Manchester United could get back into the competition because of this rule breach? This is exactly what happened, and today we are going to tell you the complete story of how it all unfolded and why Manchester United fans were left disappointed once again. What really happened at Blundell Park? Before we dive into the controversy, let us remind ourselves of just how dramatic this match was. Manchester United traveled to Grimsby Town on what should have been a routine Wednesday evening in the Carabao Cup second round. Grimsby Town shocked everyone by taking a 2-0 lead at their home ground, Blundell Park. The atmosphere was electric, with the home fans barely believing what they were seeing. Their team was actually beating Manchester United. But United showed their quality by fighting back. Bryan Mbeumo scored to make it 2-1, giving United hope of a comeback. Then Harry Maguire scored the equalizer to make it 2-2, taking the match to extra time and eventually penalties. The penalty shootout was absolutely incredible. It went on and on, with both teams scoring penalty after penalty. In the end, it took 26 penalties to separate the two teams. Can you imagine the tension? Can you picture the nerves of every player as they stepped up to take their spot kick? The cruel twist came when Bryan Mbeumo, who had scored United's first goal in normal time, missed the decisive 26th penalty. Grimsby Town had done the impossible. They had beaten Manchester United and secured their place in the third round of the Carabao Cup. United fans were devastated. Players looked shocked. Nobody could quite believe what had just happened. But sometimes football produces these magical moments that remind us why we love the game so much. The rule breach that changed everything. Just when everyone thought the story was over, news broke on Tuesday morning that completely changed the situation. The English Football League revealed that Grimsby Town had been fined £20,000 for fielding an ineligible player during their victory over Manchester United. The player in question was Clark Oduor, and here is the ironic part of the story. Oduor was actually the only Grimsby player who missed his penalty in the shootout. The same player who was not supposed to be on the pitch was the one who failed to score from the spot. So what exactly went wrong with Oduor's registration? This is where the story gets really interesting and shows how small administrative errors can have massive consequences in professional football. Grimsby Town were supposed to register Oduor with the EFL before the match against Manchester United. They submitted his registration paperwork, thinking everything was in order. But there was a problem that nobody noticed until it was too late. The registration was submitted exactly 1 minute after the deadline. Just 60 seconds. In the world of professional football, where millions of pounds are at stake and rules must be followed precisely, 1 minute might as well be 1 hour or 1 day. To make matters worse, Grimsby had been experiencing computer problems on the day they tried to submit the registration. These technical difficulties meant that club officials did not immediately realize that the registration had been submitted late. Think about how frustrating this must have been for everyone involved. The registration was ready, the paperwork was complete, the player was available to play. But because of computer problems and a 1-minute delay, the biggest victory in Grimsby's recent history was now under threat. How did this mistake go unnoticed? You might be wondering how such an important mistake could go unnoticed until after the match had been played. This is actually a great question that reveals a lot about how football administration works behind the scenes. When clubs submit player registrations, there are multiple systems and checks that are supposed to catch any problems. But sometimes things slip through the cracks, especially when technical problems are involved. Grimsby town officials genuinely believed that Oduor had been registered correctly. They had no intention of breaking any rules or gaining an unfair advantage. In fact, the mistake only became apparent when the club conducted their own internal review after the match. This internal review was probably routine. Most clubs check their paperwork after big matches to make sure everything was handled correctly. When Grimsby discovered the registration error, they did something that many clubs might not have done. They reported the mistake to the EFL themselves. This self-reporting shows that Grimsby were trying to do the right thing, even though it could have cost them their place in the competition. It takes courage and integrity to admit your mistakes, especially when those mistakes could have such serious consequences. The EFL acknowledged this cooperation from Grimsby when they announced the fine. They recognized that the club had not tried to hide anything and had been transparent about the error as soon as they discovered it. What Manchester United fans were hoping for. When news of this rule breach became public, Manchester United fans immediately started asking the obvious question. If Grimsby fielded an ineligible player, shouldn't the match result be overturned? Shouldn't United be given another chance? This kind of situation has happened before in football. Teams have been expelled from competitions or forced to replay matches when they have been found guilty of fielding ineligible players. United fans remembered these precedents and started to hope that justice might be served. Social media was full of United supporters demanding that the EFL take action. Some wanted a replay of the match. Others wanted Grimsby to be expelled from the competition entirely, which would automatically put United through to the next round. The arguments from United fans made sense from their perspective. Why should they suffer because their opponents broke the rules? If roles were reversed and United had fielded an ineligible player, wouldn't they expect to face consequences? There was also the financial aspect to consider. Progressing further in the Carabao Cup means more prize money and more television revenue. United were potentially losing out on significant income because of Grimsby's administrative error. But perhaps most importantly, there was the sporting principle at stake. Football competitions depend on all teams following the same rules. When one team gains an advantage by breaking these rules, even accidentally, it undermines the integrity of the entire competition. The EFL makes their decision. Despite all the arguments from Manchester United fans, the EFL made a decision that disappointed many Red Devils supporters. They announced that Grimsby Town would remain in the competition and face Sheffield Wednesday in the third round. The punishment for Grimsby was purely financial. They received a fine of £20,000, with £10,000 to be paid immediately and another £10,000 suspended until the end of the season. The suspended portion means that if Grimsby make another similar mistake this season, they will have to pay the additional fine as well. But there would be no replay and no expulsion from the tournament. Grimsby's victory over Manchester United would stand, and they would continue their cup run against Sheffield Wednesday. This decision was based on several factors that the EFL considered when determining the appropriate punishment. First, they recognized that Grimsby had made an honest mistake rather than deliberately trying to cheat or gain an unfair advantage. Second, the EFL took into account Grimsby's cooperation and transparency. The club had reported their own mistake and worked with the authorities to resolve the situation quickly and honestly. Third, the competitive impact of the error was considered minimal. Oduor had actually missed his penalty in the shootout, so his presence on the pitch could hardly be said to have given Grimsby an unfair advantage in the final outcome. Finally, the EFL probably considered the broader impact of overturning the result. Grimsby's victory was a genuine upset that captured the imagination of football fans around the world. Taking away such a special moment because of a 1-minute administrative error would have been seen as harsh by many neutral observers. How Grimsby Town responded. When the EFL announced their decision and the fine, Grimsby Town issued a statement that showed both accountability and professionalism. They acknowledged the mistake and accepted the punishment without complaint. The club's statement explained exactly what had gone wrong with the registration process. They were clear that the error was not deliberate and had been caused by computer problems that prevented them from submitting the paperwork on time. More importantly, Grimsby outlined the steps they were taking to make sure this kind of mistake never happens again. They conducted a thorough review of their administrative processes and implemented new measures to strengthen their systems. This response from Grimsby probably helped their case with the EFL. Rather than making excuses or trying to minimize their mistake, they took full responsibility and showed that they were committed to doing better in the future. The club also thanked the EFL for recognizing their cooperation and good intentions. This diplomatic approach helped maintain good relationships with the football authorities, which is important for any club that wants to avoid future problems. For Grimsby fans, the most important part of the statement was probably the confirmation that their team would remain in the Carabao Cup. The dream run would continue with a third-round match against Sheffield Wednesday at Hillsborough Stadium. Why this decision makes sense. While Manchester United fans were disappointed by the EFL's decision, there are several good reasons why it was probably the right call. Understanding these reasons helps us see the bigger picture of how football competitions should be governed. First, the principle of proportionality is important in any disciplinary system. The punishment should fit the crime. Grimsby's mistake was administrative rather than sporting. They did not gain any competitive advantage from fielding Ojuer, who actually hurt their chances by missing his penalty. Expelling them from the competition or forcing a replay would have been a massively disproportionate response to what was essentially a paperwork error. The financial fine sends a clear message that mistakes have consequences while not destroying the club's cup run. Second, the EFL had to consider the precedent that their decision would set. If they overturned this result, would they have to do the same for every minor administrative error in the future? This could create a situation where matches are constantly being replayed or teams are being expelled for technical violations that do not affect the actual competition. Third, there is the question of timing. The registration was submitted just 1 minute late, and the error was discovered and reported by Grimsby themselves after the match. This shows good faith from the club and suggests that any advantage gained was completely unintentional. Finally, football competitions are supposed to be decided on the pitch, not in boardrooms or courtrooms. Grimsby earned their victory through their performance in the match and their success in the penalty shootout. Taking that away because of a paperwork error would have felt unfair to many people. What this means for competition integrity. This situation raises important questions about how football competitions should handle rule breaches and administrative errors. Where do we draw the line between mistakes that should be punished and mistakes that should result in match results being overturned? The EFL's decision suggests that they distinguish between different types of rule violations. Deliberate attempts to cheat or gain unfair advantages are treated more seriously than honest mistakes that do not affect the competitive balance of a match. This approach makes sense because it recognizes that human error is inevitable in any complex administrative system. If every small mistake resulted in matches being replayed, competitions would become chaotic and unpredictable for all the wrong reasons. However, the decision also sends a message to clubs that they need to be more careful with their administrative processes. Even though Grimsby was not severely punished, they still had to pay a significant fine that could have been avoided with better organization. Other clubs will take note of this situation and hopefully improve their own systems to avoid similar problems. The threat of financial penalties and negative publicity should be enough to encourage better practices across the league. The road ahead for Grimsby Town. Despite the controversy surrounding their victory over Manchester United, Grimsby Town can now focus on their upcoming third-round match against Sheffield Wednesday. This fixture is scheduled for Tuesday, September 16th, at Hillsborough Stadium, with kickoff at 7:45 p.m. Sheffield Wednesday will provide a completely different challenge compared to Manchester United. While United are a Premier League team with international stars, Wednesday are a championship club with a more similar profile to teams that Grimsby face regularly in League Two. However, Sheffield Wednesday are still 2 divisions above Grimsby, so this will be another David versus Goliath encounter. The Mariners will need to produce another special performance if they want to continue their cup run. The experience of beating Manchester United will give Grimsby enormous confidence going into this match. They have already proved that they can compete with teams from higher divisions, and they have shown that they can handle the pressure of penalty shootouts. For Grimsby fans, just reaching the third round of the Carabao Cup represents a fantastic achievement. The fact that they beat Manchester United along the way makes it even more special. Whatever happens against Sheffield Wednesday, this cup run will be remembered for years to come. Lessons learned for all clubs. The Grimsby versus Manchester United situation provides valuable lessons for football clubs at all levels. These lessons go beyond just player registration and extend to general administrative practices and crisis management. First, the importance of accurate record-keeping and deadline management cannot be overstated. In professional football, missing a deadline by even 1 minute can have serious consequences. Clubs need robust systems to track important dates and ensure that all paperwork is submitted on time. Second, technical problems and computer malfunctions are not valid excuses for missing deadlines. Clubs need backup systems and contingency plans to deal with technical difficulties. If your primary computer system fails, you need alternative methods to submit important documents. Third, transparency and cooperation with authorities can help minimize the consequences of mistakes. Grimsby's decision to self-report their error and cooperate fully with the EFL investigation probably helped them avoid harsher punishment. Fourth, having strong internal review processes can help identify problems before they become serious issues. If Grimsby had not conducted their post-match review, the registration error might never have been discovered, which could have led to more serious problems later. Finally, clubs need to understand that even honest mistakes can have significant consequences. The £20,000 fine imposed on Grimsby is a substantial amount for a League Two club, and it serves as a reminder that administrative accuracy is not optional in professional football. What Manchester United can learn. While Manchester United were the victims in this situation rather than the perpetrators, there are still lessons they can take from what happened. The biggest lesson is probably about taking lower league opponents seriously in cup competitions. United's defeat to Grimsby was shocking precisely because it was so unexpected. Many people, including perhaps some United players, probably assumed that the match would be a routine victory. This kind of complacency can be dangerous in cup competitions where anything can happen. The fact that United took the match to a penalty shootout shows that they fought back after going 2-0 down. However, they should never have been in a position where they needed to come back against a League Two opponent in the first place. Cup competitions provide opportunities for smaller clubs to make history and for bigger clubs to win trophies. But they also create traps for unwary teams who do not prepare properly or who underestimate their opponents. United fell into this trap against Grimsby. Going forward, United need to make sure that they approach every cup match with the right attitude and preparation, regardless of their opponents. The difference in quality between divisions is not as large as it used to be, and upsets are becoming more common. The broader impact on football. The Grimsby versus Manchester United controversy highlights several broader issues in modern football that extend beyond just one match or one competition. These issues affect how the game is governed and how clubs operate at all levels. One of the biggest issues is the increasing complexity of football administration. Modern clubs have to deal with registration systems, financial fair play rules, work permit requirements, and dozens of other regulatory frameworks. The more complex these systems become, the more likely it is that mistakes will occur. Another issue is the role of technology in football administration. While computer systems can make processes more efficient, they can also create new types of problems when they malfunction. The EFL and other football authorities need to ensure that their systems are reliable and that clubs have alternatives when technical problems occur. There is also the question of how much administrative errors should affect sporting results. Football is ultimately about what happens on the pitch, but it also depends on complex rules and regulations that must be followed. Finding the right balance between sporting merit and regulatory compliance is an ongoing challenge. Finally, this situation shows the importance of proportionate punishments in football governance. The EFL's decision to fine Grimsby rather than expel them from the competition shows that authorities can be flexible and sensible when dealing with honest mistakes. Looking forward. As we wrap up this comprehensive analysis of the Grimsby versus Manchester United controversy, It is worth reflecting on what this story tells us about modern football and how competitions should be run. The EFL's decision to allow Grimsby to remain in the Carabao Cup was probably the right one, even though it disappointed Manchester United fans. It balanced the need to punish rule violations with the recognition that honest mistakes should not destroy sporting achievements. For Grimsby Town, this experience will serve as both a celebration and a warning. They can celebrate their historic victory over Manchester United while learning important lessons about administrative accuracy and professionalism. For Manchester United, this defeat serves as a reminder that cup competitions are unpredictable and that every opponent must be taken seriously. The fact that they were knocked out by a team that had broken the rules, even accidentally, makes the defeat even more frustrating. For football fans everywhere, this story provides entertainment, drama, and important insights into how the game is governed. It shows that even in the modern era of professional football, there is still room for David versus Goliath stories and administrative comedy of errors. Final thoughts from Unite United News. At Unite United News, we believe in giving you the complete story, not just the headlines. The Grimsby versus Manchester United controversy is much more complex than it first appeared, involving questions of sporting integrity, administrative competence, and proportionate punishment. While Manchester United fans may feel hard done by, the EFL's decision was based on sound principles and careful consideration of all the relevant factors. Grimsby Town made an honest mistake, reported it themselves, and faced appropriate consequences without having their sporting achievement taken away. This is exactly why you come to Unite United News for your Manchester United coverage. We do not just tell you what happened, we explain why it happened and what it means for the club going forward. We provide the context and analysis that helps you understand the bigger picture. Whether you agree with the EFL's decision or not, this story reminds us that football is about more than just what happens on the pitch. It is also about rules, regulations, administration, and governance. When these elements come together, they create the complex and fascinating world of modern football that we all love. Stay with Unite United News for all your Manchester United coverage. We will continue to bring you honest analysis, detailed reporting, and the insider knowledge that makes us the most trusted source for Red Devils fans everywhere. Because when it comes to Manchester United news, you deserve nothing less than the complete truth.